Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Wow, what a weekend, and what a weekend it was. Not only do we have really positive market moving news, but this morning we had our first ever House Hack earnings call showing EBITDA profitability, which for a company that's been operating for 18 months is freaking phenomenal. A lot of great things happening there. I visited my mom for Mother's Day, flew to Utah this morning. Utah gorgeous, although some crazy winds going into Heber. Really gusty. Don't love those sort of crosswinds. That said, let's cover some of the news that's going on. First of all, we got a truce between Pakistan and India over the weekend. Very positive for two nuclear powers. Very good. Apparently Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the United States were involved in negotiations and sort of, trying to calm the waters over there, although I don't know that there's much water between them, but there are water trade issues and all sorts of other things, and trade deals that India allows water to flow into Pakistan so they can have hydro energy and otherwise. So I don't know, maybe the waters were calmed. But anyway, beyond that, obviously some of the big major news this weekend was positive potential news on a Chinese trade deal. And apparently Donald Trump is getting a new plane. I think Peter Schiff puts it in the easiest manner when he says Trump will get a $400 million Boeing 747. Damn, bro! I actually just flew into San Francisco, parallel landing with a 777 heavy, and you don't want to get behind one of these with a smaller jet because they're going to blow you out of the water with their wake turbulence. It's crazy. And when I say water, I mean air in this case. I'm not really good with the analogies today. But that said, Peter Schiff says this plane is described as a flying palace from the Qatar royal family, and it could be used as Air Force One. I wonder when someone in the Middle East is like, hey, take this plane gift, use it as the presidential Air Force. There's probably somebody checking for some security. Then again, Boeing is building it, so I'm sure it's fine, but it's kind of interesting. But anyway, after he leaves office, ownership of the gift reverts to the Trump library, which basically means Trump can use it for his personal purposes forever afterwards. And then Peter Schiff says, stockbrokers can't accept gifts worth over $100. It is good to be the king. No, Peter, you're wrong. It is good to be a king with immunity. That said, we got to talk China, obviously. Besant will be on Squawk Box at between 4 to 5 a.m. Pacific time. So he's got a really early slot on Squawk Box tomorrow morning. I'm going to try to cover that, whatever the heck he says, as soon as possible, because obviously he was involved in the talks, so I kind of want to see what he has to say. But reporters are saying there's basically news about a positive deal coming from China. TBD on timing, but it doesn't matter because, in their words, the reporters in China and the U.S. will on Monday issue a joint statement reached at the 2-day trade talks in Geneva over the weekend. Asked what will be the exact timing for the release of the joint statement, the Chinese International Trade Negotiator and Vice Minister of Commerce replied with a Chinese saying that if the dish is delicious, then the timing is not a matter. In other words, it's good news coming, and we'll let you know when we figure it out. In fact, they even say no matter when the statement is released, it's going to be big news and good news for the world. So that sounds good, right? Because that could prop up GDP basically globally. Now, something to consider about how this could potentially work is if there's any kind of pause of the tariff situation, we could immediately import a lot of holdover warehoused inventory, get truckers back to work. There's a lot of inventory holding over in Canada, for example, right now at holdover warehouses, where basically you ship stuff from China into Canada, but you don't bring it to the United States yet because you don't want to pay the tariffs that are 145%. So you wait for the trade war to end and boom, you import it right away. So that could mean we could see all of a sudden a surge in inventories at companies while also a surge of new orders under any kind of pause. And all that stuff is actually really productive to GDP. Whether there are underlying pain points we still have to address, we'll touch on in just a moment. But so far, this all sounds really good. Obviously, the pre-markets are up over 1.5%, treasury yields on the 10 driving up to 4.4. So you've kind of got like good for stock market, but bad for like people who have a lot of, variable interest rate debt. Fortunately, we don't have any, but something to think about is, corporate financing, smaller businesses, those more credit exposed. That's obviously something that puts pressure on them. But in terms of larger cap stocks, S&P 500 style stocks, usually less of an issue to see these yields go up. So good for sort of the broader, larger cap companies. We're also expecting to get a 9 a.m. Eastern, so 6 a.m., a lot happening in the early hours there, California time, 6 a.m. Executive order being signed, so expected to be like 6:30, right when the market opens, on reducing pharmaceutical prices by 30 to 80%. Now, what's interesting about this is if you're going to raise pharmaceutical price or reduce pharmaceutical prices 30 to 80% and then say that they're going to go up in the rest of the world, it sort of implies that we're finally going to get those sectoral tariffs. So we're still waiting on semiconductor and pharmaceutical sectoral tariffs. Maybe that's what we're going to get tomorrow is, good news on China while at the same time announcing some pharma tariffs. Obviously, most of the economy cares more about what's going on with China. This does potentially open us up to importing cheaper goods from China again, which is good for inflation because we import deflation from China, right? China is not only facing deflation, but the more people order from China, the cheaper and cheaper things get. Now, it sort of does beg the question of, was all of this always just a negotiation or do they want the actual revenue? Best case scenario is this is all just a negotiation like was anticipated during Trump's campaign. Worst case scenario is Donald Trump is obsessed with getting at least some revenue and we only get a reduction of tariffs in like half, or whatever. We'll see. In my opinion, markets right now, with the Qs and pre-market being up 1.6, we probably really need to get to like a 0-0 trade deal for markets to really, really rally. Because what we've really done is unpriced all of the Liberation Day damage. But if we get a reduction in tariffs to 25% plus 25 for, reciprocal tariffs or whatever, which is a huge step down from 145, you still have to deal with 50% tariffs, which is still pretty expensive. It's still a big number, and it's still going to have a shock. And sort of the longer-term impacts of what's going to come out of all of this, nobody really knows. But right now, markets are very happy. And I think the more we keep getting good news like this, the better it is for longer-term investors. And so this is where I think those people looking for like shaving a little bit off their portfolio, as we've been saying over the last 2.5 to 3 weeks now, those trailing stops have not triggered at all. They've been straight up. So you've really been winning all of this. Of course, we don't know what the real shocks are going to be until May, June, July. Now, if we can get a lot of trade deals done, like maybe even news on Canada or whatever, the other countries of the world, then really what happens is, let's say all the tariffs are gone. All we have to price into markets is the damage that was caused in the economy during April and the first part of May. I think most companies will probably just kitchen sink that in their earnings and go, oh yeah, we missed Q2 because of the tariff drama, but don't worry, we're gonna guide hiring Q3, and so they'll kitchen sink some more expenses and or whatever, the way they businesses can sort of time certain things for their earnings. So wouldn't be surprised to see that. And I think markets will really try to look through the shocks if we can get to 0-0. So best case scenario is we really pause tariffs, we lower tariffs substantially, we even get the 10% sectoral tariffs, reciprocal tariffs off of everybody. Best case scenario. But if this trade deal with China is just, we're going to pause some of them, but not all of them, then maybe on the shorter term, we might actually give up some of this pricing that we've recovered since the beginning of April. Who knows, obviously. Wall Street Journal says the talks were productive. That's pretty much what every mainstream news outlet says. So trade-wise, I'd say watch for the details. And if the details are meh, okay, fine. Maybe you don't go anywhere or you trade down, right? I don't know that you go puts in this sort of market. I like those trailing stops, like 10% on the Qs. Easy way to shave. But in my opinion, if you get something like 0-0, markets are probably just going to look through April's damage, and this is actually pretty optimistic. Now, will the labor market hold up? Hey, well, no. Maybe we'll be able to confirm a soft landing by August, and that'll be really exciting. Anyway, thank you so very much for watching. I will be live with course members tomorrow morning. We'll probably do a pre-market open live as well. We'll see. A little exhausted from flying so much here lately, and we'll see if we can do a pre-market live nonetheless. And then if you've got any questions about House Hack, also feel free to email us at ir@househack.com. We answered a ton of questions on our Q1 earnings call this morning, and it was a real pleasure to be there for all of you. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye and good luck.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.